I have a treat for you tonight, everyone. Look, it's the building that they have. It's that thing, this one. Look, I've been saying for a long time, by which I mean I'm about to make up this phrase as I say it, that the whole mission of RailNet is to make transport political again. There are far too many politicians, in fact the vast majority of the whole political sphere, including the media who commentate on it, who just don't treat transport, they treat transport as some funny side thing or a big project to be pilloried in the case of HS2, rather than understanding its role in the wider in wider society and also in the wider political machinations. Those politicians who have picked up and run with transport as a way to make people's lives better also happen to be some of the more successful ones in the country. Burnham, for example, who has made a political career, and certainly the latter parts of the renaissance of his political career, around what transport can deliver for Mancunians. And so this, I hope, is the first of a few very interesting conversations that I have with people who are in the thick of that political environment, or indeed are political leaders, and understand their views on how railways and how transport and politics intersect. Everyone, welcome to tonight's RailNatter. And as the InCity 225 fades away, not just me, but us, because I didn't need that anymore, because Michael is here. Hello, Michael C is here with me, hello. And we are here to have a chat with Maryam Eslamdoust, who is the General Secretary of the TSSA, which is one of the unions. It's the kind of the white collar union for transport workers. But Mariam is politically active on all sorts of fronts, and she endorsed my book, and the two of us chat every now and then, and I wanted to see what she thinks about a load of stuff that's happening at the moment, but particularly wanting to talk about violence against transport workers. It's something that the TSSA have championed for quite a number of years now, that she herself has championed. I wanted to get her views on that, and how it can be resolved, and whether it's picking up the level of political clout it needs. But we're on our way to the TSSA offices. Let's go in and have a chat with Mariam. We're in the TSSA offices. Mariam, thank you so much for bringing us up here. They're quite nice. They're quite nice. You know, it's Friday, so it's also completely empty, as is the case in most of London. If you were meeting someone and they had never heard of the TSSA, how would you introduce the TSSA to them?
Well, it's a handful. So the TSSA is the Transport Salaried Staffs Association. We are a transport union. But we represent white-collar workers, so not your station staff or guards. It's the engineers, the people in the back rooms, the ones that you don't usually see, the behind-the-scenes workforce, if you like.
Yeah. I mean, it's what. I was a design consultant for 13 years, and that's white-collar. That's exactly within the camp of the TSSA. So, what are some of the things what does your day-to-day look like, for example?
So absolutely, so unions do represent people when they have troubles at work. I don't normally get involved at that level, but you'll be surprised at some of the things that I do. HR, comms, I don't do finance, but we... But we do a lot of transport policy, we do a lot of stakeholder work with the government, with civil servants. We campaign on issues that affect our members. We do a whole host of things, and we do more. We try and set some gold standards in terms of like geopolitical stances, equalities. So just a whole host of things.
Souvenirs.
Oh, hello. Here you go. This is where the important decisions
you do have to have,
happen.
I was going to say, this is where, if you're an important political organisation, which unions absolutely are, you do genuinely need to have a room where people meet and talk about things and mediate. Mariam, thanks for taking us down here. It's really nice to see that. Brilliant.
That's good. And I said I'll give you a souvenir. So
you did. There we go.
Save our, what do you want?
Yeah, absolutely. Ticket offices, yes.
Yeah?
I've got my TSSA 125 still. Am I right to save our ticket offices badge?
Yes.
We're not through the woods yet on this one, by the way, folks. Keep an eye out for ticket office policy, because they're going to try it again soon. Anyway, there we are. It's always nice to get into the gubbins. I've always liked having a little peek behind the curtain at the That's very, look. Unions have merchandise too. That's very nice, look at that. In a time when consultancy is more exposed, I think, than it has been for a few decades. What do you think about the consultancy world and the extent to which the unions have kind of penetrated that world?
Look, union membership, it currently stands at about 20% in the UK, and that is pretty poor. With so many redundancies at stake, it's really important for consultants to have union representation.
Because I was going to say, the numbers are even lower within, like the saturation into consultancy world is minuscule, right?
Absolutely, and I understand that because I started my career in corporate law and I wasn't a member of a union, and I found out the hard way what it is to face workplace issues without that union representation. You're exposed financially and personally. They do it really well in Sweden. In Scandinavian countries, they have much better rate of saturation amongst white collar and consultancies. And I would be really keen to meet with the Scandinavian unions to understand how it is that they do it.
Shout out to all our Scandi pals watching. Let's make it happen. Consultancy world has been quite comfortable for quite a long time. Like there's always capex stuff being thrown around, big capital projects, and sort of the kind of level of renewals that required a baseline of consultancy. You know, I'm thinking of design world. When I talk about consultancy, I'm thinking less about your Deloittes and PwCs, what I call pure consultancy. I'm thinking more about applied consultancy, which is people who have like engineer in their title, but they're in offices, they're hidden, you know, no one's seeing them. Comfortable and therefore not having any reason to think I need to be in a union. The last year has seen such change, like basically it's been a vicious year for those projects, a complete lack of big capital expenditure. Isolated, you know, the big money being spent on a few big projects, but the result is redundancies, right? My hope is that as those people are moving around the industry, they realise, I'm hoping first that they get jobs elsewhere in the industry, which some have been, others haven't been. It's time to be involved in the union and you know, the rug can get pulled out right, like without any warning, right?
Absolutely, and that's what's happening with GBR at the moment. I mean, we publicly campaigned, well, for over 30 years, TSSA has been campaigning for public ownership of the railways, and now it's happening under GBR, and we're seeing increased job insecurity, we're seeing risks to terms and conditions, and it's a model that is replicating some of the worst features of a fragmented privatised system. So absolutely, anyone working in public transport in the back office jobs like you were, Gareth, they need to be part of a union.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see this huge shift of, you know, a situation where government's intentions are, let's take the minimum of all the working, like all the various worker agreements across the train operators and put those into GBR. What we should be seeing is, no, what's the best across the board? I mean, if they're sensible, it'd be like, if we do pick the best from across the board, then the process of getting the unions on board with the agreement for GBR will be easy, because it'll be everyone's got the best of the bunch. You'll have no costs associated with action, with strikes. And
we want to make rail the preferred mode of transport, and the best way of making that happen is absolutely to give transport workers improved security, amazing terms and conditions, and passengers too benefit from that.
If I am in a train, I want the staff running the train, the driver and the staff and the people who are doing the designs and working on all the planning backroom that makes the railway work, to be having a good time, to be enjoying their job, because most of them already do, and they should be rewarded with a salary that matches their love of matches their skills and their work, but also crucially that they have the ability to travel around on the rail. You know, ideally, they'd be getting the kind of the privs and ability to travel around by train in the way that workers have in isolated pockets. For being in the infrastructure world, I was always jealous of the train operating staff, right? Because they get their free travel, and I'm there going, yeah, I work for this organisation, I work for this organisation. I designed this bit of railway, I just went over, but no. And they're like, oh, you get free travel, you work on the railways. Like, no. We want our staff to be having a good time, because how are our passengers going to have a good time if the staff running the service aren't right? Yeah, absolutely.
And it's about safety too. Yeah.
Ideally, this is what nationalisation was supposed to be about, creating the virtuous cycle that gets us out of the doom loop that May 2018 sort of highlighted the end of the franchising system, what a mess that was. We want to kind of get out of the doom loop. We've been sat in stasis since 2018, basically, right?
Absolutely, and this, you know, the flawed model should not be celebrated.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's a busy corner of London. You're next to Liverpool Street station, which means that you've got all the choice of coffee shops that you want. You know, you're in the nice side of London. What does your commute look like? Like, what is your commute when you're getting across London?
Well, I'm coming down from Finchley, so far North London.
Oh yeah.
It's not a bad commute. About 40 minutes on the Northern Line.
Okay, yeah. Northern Line's not too bad.
No.
You know, It's not like I was worried that you might say something like, well, I have to use the central line, and it's like, oh, well,
no,
commiserations.
No, fortunately not.
Yeah, good stuff. One of the things that's like clear in London is the extent to which like it's still, despite all the economic back and forth, still a city that is absolutely just thriving and just sort of continues to rise and emerge. Transport being absolutely at the heart of that. It's really a city that like you could, I mean, you know, Crossrail coming through Liverpool Street and everything, like really, for you as a Londoner, has the Elizabeth line felt like a big change, and like, do you feel that how much transport is the beating heart of the city?
Absolutely. So I mean, in the city we're very lucky to have so many transport options. But if I take you across here,
let's go
there's all of the chrome and glass and the money's here.
I know.
But if we go to just over there, you'll see quite a lot of social housing still, and markets that are just, you know, normal everyday markets at Petticoat Lanes.
Yeah, London. It's
there.
A city of, well, in a way, it's two cities overlaid on each other. There's like the pretend money, lots of empty buildings city, and then there's the actual people who live in the city and
absolutely
have to survive in it. And transport is a bridge between those in a way, in that, you know, the ability of people to move around in the city helps break down some of those barriers. Absolutely. And the reason I bring it up, of course, I'm in London, love hanging out in London, but it's like also the rest of the UK and other cities might quite like some of this, and it's one of those things where I look forward to the moment where, and some of the things that government are doing with devolution, my hope is that we will see some more power in the mayoral combined authorities
in the regions
and an ability to actually deploy transport to benefit people at large. We're talking about London being under construction as ever. You never walk far before you find a construction site, right?
So you see that sign, City of London Housing?
Yeah.
That's social housing.
Yeah. You don't have to walk many blocks in before it's like,
you
don't, people are.
And I like that, but I mean,
No,
I
well, that's
don't
one
like
of the things
the stigma of having to bang.
Yeah, it's like, let's hide it off the beaten track.
Yeah.
So I've got family down in Denmark Hill, and there's lots of really gorgeous council housing that's built down there, like really nice estates that are just smart. People can be proud of living there. Yeah, it's really nice.
And real standards. I mean, you're an engineer. You know about social housing standards. I had to.
The difference in quality you've got. Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, actually, I prefer this to like the main haunt, because the main haunt is just so busy and it's so many chains. Whereas you start having some like real, it's like local shops and I always love finding a local cafe.
So
yeah, exactly.
Independent, and you get real authentic food. Like that one is Turkish.
Oh yeah, nice.
That one is like you have. It's very traditional, authentic Indian food.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So Mariam, you're General Secretary of a national union. You're pretty young. Tell us a bit about the story. How did you get here? What was that journey? What did it look like?
Thank you, Gareth. I'm not that young. I'm 43 years old. I grew up in West London. My family later moved to North London, and I began my career in corporate law, later moving into politics because I was very disillusioned by what I saw there as a result of not being in a union. But I went to work for a union called UCAT. You might have heard about it, Black Construction Union, which no longer exists. It merged with Unite. I was involved in the work around blacklisting of construction workers for their political views, and that was
amongst Crossrail and like some of the I know there's a lot of blacklisting related to Crossrail and other big projects.
Yeah, absolutely. But for over 50, 60 years, this was a practice that was happening secretly and was later exposed. So I went on to work for Jeremy Corbyn when he was leader of the Labour Party and served as head of equalities for the Labour Party before I got my job here.
Yeah. So you've come from outside of, you come completely from outside of transport. What have you learned? What have you learned in the transport sector? And what's interesting? What's baffling about it? What have been your perceptions as kind of an outsider, if you like, from the world of transport, and railways, I suppose. What have you discovered?
Look, so I'm not going to pretend that I was a massive train buff before I got the job here, but it was a natural step. I'd worked with unions prior to getting this job. I worked with TSSA. TSSA hosted Jeremy Corbyn's leadership campaign in their offices in Euston. I already had strong connections with the union. I Really into grassroots focused campaigns that the TSSA have been at the forefront of, health and safety, justice issues, and that engagement and that work is really core for me. TSSA has seen significant challenges in recent years, and I believe that some of the equalities issues that TSSA is experiencing, we're still on a journey. It's something that I had the skill sets. So it was, it's been interesting.
So we had Louise Haigh as Transport Secretary. We now have Heidi Alexander. Have you noticed a difference in approach from your perspective on the development of GBR and on broader issues?
Unfortunately, Louise was only in for all of 5 seconds and then she was shoved to one side. There was a lot of hope and promise when Louise was in charge of transport.
Because she'd grabbed transport, she'd been in the shadow role for a while and had really made it her own. She'd got into the detail and it was exasperating as hell to see her pushed to one side. I share.
We need to see that passion replicate.
We do. That's exactly the right way to put it. We want to see that passion. We want to see, Louise saw how it tied into the bigger cost of living piece, and we want to see that replicated.
With public ownership of the railways, the public came to it rather organically. It wasn't a situation where I know most of the left want things to be owned
by the state.
The state, but rail really wasn't a thing. It came from ordinary people because they recognised that if rail was publicly owned, it'd be cheaper, it'd be better, it'd be safer.
And that energy, she captured that, Louise captured that energy going right the way back from the energy that had been built up with under Corbyn, and then through, it's one of the policies that managed to stay in place through the sort of Starmer opposition and has stuck through. So in a way, we should be heartened that it did stick. I suppose my worry is that it stuck because it managed to be watered down, or negotiations were made about what it would actually materially look like. But in some ways, that remains to be seen. There are lots of really positive things in the railways, in the railways bill. There are things that we need to challenge. What's been your involvement actually in the bill process? Have you been brought in as the TSSA will obviously have views and will have shared those views. The select committee, the transport committee, have been doing quite a bit on it. What's your input
I would
into it?
say the involvement hasn't been to the extent that I'd hoped it would be. But yes, absolutely, unions have been consulted on various, and we have good relations with the government. But GBR could be something like the NHS.
GBR could be that. It could be something that we are
life-changing,
and also something that's so much part of the British psyche. Railways are part of the British psyche, but the railway organisation has often been the butt of the joke rather than something that we're all super proud of. Talking of trains, let's go and get on one. One of the things that's really important at the moment, and that has been working through and in a way has lost a champion with Rayner being kind of sidelined, is the Employment Rights Act, is the provisions, the changes in workers' rights. There are lots of positive things in there. I'm not going to completely naysay and doom-monger about it, but there are challenges. What's your view? What's TSSA's view on this? Where are we at with it? Where's progress with it?
I mean, the Employment Rights Act represents a potentially significant step to protecting workers' rights and increasing workers' rights, but I think the way it's being implemented is leaving a really sour taste, and it is absolutely a shame that Angela Rayner isn't that single point of contact, because under her things were working really well. There was a roadmap. We knew where we stood.
Someone who was being held accountable for its viability.
The accountability is so important, and there are some really there's some key provisions that are being delayed or watered down, and it's really difficult to see where we're at. And also looming in the background is reform. Reform have said they will rescind the act as soon as they come in, so that's a huge threat.
So TSSA are there with the others, absolutely banging on the door saying you need to make sure we get this right.
Absolutely, I think the unions are all united with this.
Yeah, really good to hear.
We've saved ticket offices,
for
now they're being featured out of the public realm, so you have to really go out of your way to find a ticket office. Look around you. There should be a ticket office.
I can't spot where it is. There's the information piece, but that can't sell any tickets.
No. So ticket offices are in news stations. They're being concealed, and I think, and this is the cynic in me, to reduce the footfall because they're so difficult to find.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the ticket machines are very prominently positioned.
Yeah, machines prominently.
Yeah.
That's not cynicism. That is absolutely just the diktat that's been put down from a design perspective. It's extremely frustrating. Yeah, and again, it comes back to something that I know that you care about a lot as well, is accessibility.
Absolutely.
Hiding ticket offices makes life so much harder for people for whom the journey is already that bit more difficult. It's extremely frustrating.
This is our ticket office in
It does feel like it's
Liverpool
been
Street.
just shoved in the side.
So it's completely concealed. It's not signposted, but here we are. We've got some ticket offices. So let's go.
Let's go and sort our ticket.
So ending violence against transport workers started off maybe in 2023, possibly before my time, but that's when I got to grips with it at TSSA. We conducted a survey, and that survey was really well received. Over 1,000 of our members responded to it, and it turned out that 1 in 4 transport workers are affected by violence, and are intimidated, assaulted, spat at.
Yep.
And we collated all of the responses, spoke to our members, and just came out with a whole host of recommendations that are valid today, but they need to be regularly honed because the environment is rapidly changing.
So this is just staff who are just, so you've surveyed, how big was the survey? What did you manage to get a decent, what felt like a decent representation across?
Absolutely. So we spoke to over 1,000.
Oh wow, yeah, okay.
And that's a good rate. And
so this is just workers who are going about their, whether they're on trains or buses, just going about their business. So also interestingly, if it's frontline staff, that means that it's not just restricted to, that's not just TSSA, your group of staff that you represent. That's across the whole transport industry, all workers who are frontline and who are victims of attacks, assaults, abuse.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about what some of those responses look like.
So the responses were people were being regularly spat at, hit, assaulted, threatened. There were some really horrifying incidents of sexual violence, and this pattern seems to be replicated across the board in other industries too, but I mean our focus and our recommendations are relevant to transport workers.
Yeah.
And some of the key issues that we identified that we've been speaking to companies and the government about is around lone working. There isn't a silver bullet, but when you have, and a lot of people in transport, as you probably know, are lone workers, they are vulnerable. So we don't encourage lone working practices at all. We've also identified that unstaffed stations allow for violent individuals, perpetrators, to access the transport system, and we don't condone that in any way or form. You might have seen footage of suburban train stations in London. Queensbury, for instance, is completely unstaffed, and there's been incidents recorded of people using machetes to fight. So this is not an ideal working environment for anyone, but for passengers too. It's very unsafe.
Ashley, I suppose I'm curious. What was the mix of men and women in that? Did you find there was were some of the assaults more directed towards women workers, or was there a bit of a pretty broad mix from the information?
It was pretty broad, but unfortunately the sexual offences seem to be geared at women, and that's regrettable. But some of the key issues that we identified, and there isn't a silver bullet in dealing with this, is that lone working practices are encouraging violence because the transport worker or any worker is vulnerable when they're working alone. We've also we completely condemn the use of unstaffed stations. Unstaffed stations make for really dangerous environments, and there's footage of Queensbury Station, which is a suburban train station in London, where people have been filmed using machetes.
What are you doing with a machete in a station?
Honestly, it's unsafe for passengers, it's unsafe for transport workers. But another key recommendations of ours is ASBO-style banning orders. If someone is a repeated offender, why should we have them on the transport system? So that's something that we are pushing, and our conversations are pretty much live with employers, with the government, and things need to happen. We completely predicted that something like Huntingdon was bound to happen. We've been speaking to whoever will listen to us since at least last year. So it's regrettable that
the escalate. I mean, obviously these things are tied to the broader socioeconomic conditions. The fact that people are in, more desperation, and more vulnerable people are less able to get help they need, and all these things. But ultimately, that's one part of the story. The other part of the story, workers cannot be in situations where where their lives are threatened, where their health or well-being is threatened, but also the psychological violence of verbal assault, of this pressure. What are some of the other recommendations that you've got that you've been pulling together as TSSA?
Increasing staffing at stations, and if a worker is assaulted, we would encourage employers to have proper counselling, proper trauma services, and not to force them back into work before they're ready. Yep. So those just very common sense recommendations. And when Huntingdon happened, actually, there were some batshit crazy recommendations being floated about, like we need to have armed transport workers, or
give everyone a Glock.
And that's just not the solution. We should never condone violence.
So there's like an arms race. That's just exactly. Yeah. You're right. It condones it, it anticipates it. What you want to do is actually
eliminate it.
Socioeconomic improvements to one side, at least the point where you make the railway and the transport environment safer for everyone.
And yes, people are feeling the squeeze. I mean, I don't know, in Europe it's really affordable to use public transport. In the UK it's much cheaper to use other forms of transport, so something really needs to happen. Yeah, and it's not that if we magically make fares cheaper that violence will go away. But it is the fact that violence should not be reaching our transport systems. Like, that just isn't acceptable for the workers who are out there. So what about some of the TSSA have been leading the charge on this for years now. What about some of the other organisations? Are you getting good responses from, for example, maybe some of the other unions, or from train operators? What are some of the responses you've been getting? So the employers do tend to listen to us, but in terms of implementation, it's been rather slow. I think they favour seasonal campaigns. So you might have seen posters around stations about please don't be violent to our staff. But I mean, that's just not going to cut it. And there is a fondness for greater CCTV usage. And whilst it's great to have more CCTV, but it isn't a silver bullet.
No, and particularly if it's leaning into facial recognition technologies, those are a mixed bag in their success, and generally also have a particular profile of people that they will target as well, and not necessarily one that's representative of where a lot of that violence is coming from. So yeah, definitely challenges in leaning on the easy and cheap solutions of like technology, rather than like, no, just don't have staff working alone. Don't have stations that are routinely unstaffed and therefore feel like an environment that is, maybe dangerous. Somewhere that's dangerous, that's somewhere that this activity can take place. Yeah, okay. And yeah, so what about the other unions? Have you had pickup from like the likes of the RMT?
Yeah, so we've worked with the RMT on some of these, on this campaign. I wouldn't say extensively, but we have had some common ground. Other industries are also picking this up, so I think it's a particular issue in health. So yes, absolutely. There are many workers who are being exposed to violence outside of their control. So something just needs to be done. Worsening working conditions for most people in Britain at the same time, in terms of salary, in terms of benefits, and at the same time you're having a more hostile working environment. It's just and also the people we're talking about are all only recently people we were referring to as key workers. They're the people who actually make the whole of society function, and yet they are at the brunt of this sort of escalating violence. It's absolutely. And retail staff, shoplifting is on the rise for reasons known to you and I, socioeconomic. But I think the government is more prone to listening to the retail. And that's not to say that there is competition between us, but if it's recognised that it's an issue,
there's an issue
retail,
here.
Yeah, absolutely. So it needs to. Transport workers are also at risk.
Absolutely. So. What are the next steps? So you've got these recommendations. You've been talking to government about this. What are your next steps that you've got in front of you? What's happening at the moment? Is there what do you see as the next step to kind of escalate this, to raise this and potentially try and see some further action?
So we are speaking to employers, and there's been pick up varying degrees depending on the employer. We're speaking to government, so I've asked to meet with Heidi Alexander about this. We're speaking to everyone and anyone who will listen. So from our side, we're doing our bit, and it's down to the government and for employers to pick up some of these recommendations that come from an absolutely good place. It's good for workers, it's good for passengers, it's good for an employer.
If you have a less hostile environment, you're going to have more passengers, more revenue. Just people perceive me as being like the clever guy who knows how to get the right tickets and get on the right train. No, I'm a railways person, and I actively seek to be as useless at travelling by train as possible to get the average experience of how easy is it for me to know what train I need to get. And unfortunately, the answer is far too often not that easy to know which train I need to get.
Well, I think most people are in that box, and that's why we need ticket offices.
Yeah.
Because they just come with a wealth of information.
Look, what I find while we try and find the right thing that's green, what is outwards? Here we go. Firstly, what was your feeling after that, seeing that campaign had succeeded? It's a thing that doesn't necessarily happen very often for those sorts of campaigns. What were your thoughts on that?
I already had a really positive mood about the success rate of that campaign, because the public was so on side. And usually with trade union campaigns or any governmental campaigns, government aren't as passionate about it, but they were on this one, because it affects everybody. If you're disabled, or if you're a lone passenger, or anyone with children, you need ticket offices. They're not just a selling point, they're a safety hub. Their visibility makes all the difference, and makes rail travel all the more easier. So I got really involved in it because I was running for to be General Secretary. So it was I believed in it. My brother's disabled, so he needs
absolutely relies on the
assistance
booked through ticket offices.
So it was very, I was very passionate about it. In getting it reversed, yes, absolutely. But I mean,
we're not through the woods yet, though. It does feel some of the policies. You get these little hints of things that worry me, like the new ticket refund policy that you basically, if I bought a ticket for tomorrow, a big expensive ticket to go and see a friend, and they, something happens, and they're like, oh, sorry, I can't. Can we make it next weekend? I can't get, if it's on the day, I can't get a refund for those tickets. That is staggering. The changes to refund policy, just little things like that, and it's like, well, it's to catch fraud. It's like, baby with the bathtub, is that really the right approach? And little things like that really worry me about the idea of prioritising passengers, including potential new passengers, not just regular passengers, versus some of the decision making over maximising revenue, maximising that stuff is...
No, we remain worried about it. I mean, they've reduced the hours of operation for many ticket offices. They're saying ticket office workers need to be visible, roaming around the station. But again, we know from violence against transport workers that's not a safe way of operating. So no, we're not out of the woods. You're right, and we've got to watch it. And you just saw it with Liverpool Street's ticket office. It was so hidden, and I think that's a deliberate decision to reduce footfall.
Lots of people, whether it's casual travellers or first-time travellers, the ones who might start travelling by train more permanently, their first experience is a baffling ticket machine, giving them 1,000 options. It's just not. We need to have a ticket office with a friendly face, that community feel. Whether it's they've got their sort of a bunch of some flowers or some local memorabilia or some photos, things that oh, this is a human I'm speaking to, and this station is part of the community, not some corporate frontage. It's this is part of the community. Part of where, it's worrying. And as you say, government is perhaps not going to they lost, a previous incarnation of government lost the battle over outright closing, most ticket offices. That doesn't mean that they're not interested in reducing, as you say, hours are already being reduced, and
they're
it's really
pursuing
worrying.
it in a crafty backdoor route of reducing hours of operation, reducing the scope of ticket offices. So it's one to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use your ticket office.
And look, overground. Look at that. Good stuff. Right, so
engineers, they also experience violence in terms of people coming and stealing cables.
We have cable theft. Cable theft. My favorite example of violence was I'll decide in the edit how much of this I keep in, but keep filming.
For that story, you will have to subscribe to the Patreon at a £5 or above tier for a weekly bonus episode, this week's including that story and much, much more.
But cable theft, we have situations where we're out with survey teams and we have cautions of don't go out and work because this area is seeing escalating levels of violence. People in Orange have been threatened. People have been threatened with knives to take equipment out of vans and stuff. So it does happen. It might not be frontline passenger-facing staff, but the violence is absolutely happening to people in Orange on track, maintenance workers, or whatever it is. So yeah, it's absolutely real for those people as well. The campaign is really important that it's right the way across the board, and it's not acceptable. No one, what is the Network Rail phrase? Home safe, everyone home safe every day. That's not just our own internal. We're saying that as we had another worker fatality, that's a whole other story. But it's not just about staff not being hit by trains. It's also about staff being safe from violence from other people as well.
From gangs.
Yeah. This is it. We're on a train. I always happy when I'm on a train. This is my happy space. On a train, moving along at speed, electric service, seeing the world. I'm always happy on a train. So one of the things, as we're about to get on a Crossrail train, right, onto an Elizabeth line train, massive, fantastic piece of civil engineering to deliver a railway that London could not live without, instantly couldn't live without, because it's just the speed, the comfort of getting through central London, and also everyone's very grumpy when it breaks, which is usually a good sign that it's a critical part of infrastructure, right? In terms of politics, my view is that transport is not seen as, it doesn't win the political capital, it's not taken seriously enough as something that fundamentally changes people's lives, solves our environmental challenges, and answers a lot of the economic questions that Britain, frankly, has completely failed to answer for decades. The only politician who I think, the major leading politician who I think has capitalised on that regionally is Andy Burnham.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the relationship between transport and politics? Do you think transport is taken seriously enough? Do you think that more could be done to really anchor transport within that wider national story? What do you think?
I think absolutely there's more that can anchor transport into the public policy-making realms. Andy Burnham, I think, is a politician that completely gets it.
Yep.
There were a lot of high hopes pinned on Andy.
Yeah. Somewhat cornered Labour on that one, but oh well. Yeah, okay, whoops.
But I think some good things are happening. We can't be too downcast on the current mood, but absolutely there needs to be more.
So the thing about Burnham is that he understands that this, as an Elizabeth line train pulls in, hello Elizabeth line train, as it pulls in, this is the infrastructure that all the cities in the UK need, not just London. Manchester, massive city. Burnham understands that it's key. He's asking for this. What's funny is that these already feel like they've been kind of pretty well worn because they're so heavily used. Crossrail has spectacularly exceeded its predicted footfall. Absolutely vital bit of infrastructure that Londoners literally couldn't live without. And the thing that I always think in that line is other cities could have infrastructure that they can't live without. Burnham understands that, and he's built a lot of political capital by telling Mancunians that.
Yes.
Do you think central government is going to give him the power he needs to actually act on those political aspirations?
I think there'll be reluctance because of his popularity and how popular those policies are.
Yeah.
I think the other politician that was really quite a maverick in terms of public transport was Ken Livingstone.
Yeah, absolutely.
His vision was very transformative. I mean, we're living.
These are not Boris things; they are Livingston things. Absolutely. Yeah. And the Boris bikes, again, a Livingston initiative. Absolutely. Yeah. Politicians who've understood the role of transport in improving people's lives. Cost of living is such a key issue at the moment, and transport poverty is rife. So we talk about cost of living, and look, there's been this brutal assault on Iran. Iran has responded by closing the Strait of Hormuz, essentially kind of like zipping off enormous sections of the global energy trade. The result is going to be a compounding of cost of living challenges in Britain. What can transport do? Firstly, that is going to hit transport. It's going to hit people who are having to rely on the car. What can transport do to kind of plug that gap? What's it going to look like in Britain? What are your thoughts on that pressure?
I'm hugely concerned about that, and as are other trade unionists, because far from it being a conflict far away, it's something that's impacting our members, British public, right now, because the price of fuel has spiked, as you're aware.
And that hits goods, it hits supermarket shelves, it hits everything.
And absolutely, you're right. With the Strait of Hormuz being blocked, commodity prices are going to go through the roof, and actually that's our household budgets squeezed. So I'm fully expecting another cost of living crisis, and that will have an immense impact on our membership, on British workers. And it's something that politicians can just stand up and say, actually, this war, it's illegal, it needs to stop now. But I don't think anyone's had the backbone. We're given the impression that our Prime Minister is standing up to Trump.
And yet, at the same time, we're seeing US bombers literally being loaded on UK soil. What is next? What is the big thing that TSSA are facing that they need to, that you feel is the most important thing that's really pressing on your time?
Look, I'm going to be honest here, it's GBR, getting GBR right for our members. We need to be transitioning our members in a way that's just. We need to be protecting jobs, terms and conditions, their pensions, but also the assaults. The violence against transport workers is a major challenge for everyone, for every industry. It's getting all of those right.
And we've got those changes. We've got the changes in, it's in lines of accountability, lines of responsibility, the structure of the organisation. These are all things. Look, whenever there's a big Network Rail is a big organisation. Whenever there's a reorganisation, and there currently is a load of efficiencies and movement going on, you lose some of that connected, some of the knowledge of like who is responsible for this problem, who is accountable for those people. So having the support of unions, having the pressure from unions to make sure the right decisions are made is so key.
And also protecting women, because women are traditionally, as you know better than I do, very underrepresented in transport, making sure that union representation is resonating with women, people of colour, people of LGBT backgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the representation is just crucial. As we go into shaping what the railway industry, which is it's state-owned, it's for us, it's for everyone, it has to therefore represent everyone. And if it's just representing a small slice, then we're not getting it right. We're just going to repeat all the mistakes that we've spent the last decades repeating over and over again. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Mariam, no, thank you. That has been such, it's been really good to chat to you. It's been such a delight. It's been so good. Yeah. Right, return. Make sure I put the right one in here. Good, I'm through.
Yes, thank you, Mariam. That was brilliant. For more stories, including a few that were a little too spicy for the main feed, you can subscribe to the Patreon. £5 and above. Those tiers get you access to a weekly bonus episode, as well as a free copy of the How the Rails Will Fix the Future audiobook, and quite a bit more besides. Go subscribe to do that. Before we close out, a little bit of news. So, the Strait of Hormuz still closed as of, the few days since Mariam and I were chatting. Still closed. Iran still very much holding pretty much all the cards. The US flagship has had to retire for suspect reasons that are arguably more embarrassing than admitting that Iran has perhaps had something to do with it. I'd have thought Iran probably would have said if it had knocked out the flagship. So I suspect there's more at play here than either. Anyway, the point being, this is gone, and as a result, the crisis rolls on. Meanwhile, the IEA, not the fascist one, the Institute of Economic Affairs, no, the International Energy Association or agency or something, have been, I have no idea what their actual role is, but anyway, they've been sending out international guidance. It turns out we could just do this the whole time, apparently. Sheltering from oil shocks, encourage public transport use, alternate day car access in big cities, work from home where possible, lower highway speed limits, increase car sharing, drive commercial vehicles efficiently, free up LPG from transport for cooking, avoid air travel if alternatives exist. Turns out you can do all these things. These are all things we should be doing right now. Why on earth is it taking this long for the IEA to be issuing edicts like this when we need to be reducing our fossil fuel consumption at mass scale right now, independent of whether there is, a once-in-a-half century energy shock thanks to Iran shenanigans happening. We could just do this the whole time. Meanwhile, in the UK, data centers, government numbers about data center use and energy consumption specifically, and emissions have been saying that those emissions are going to be trivial. However, if there's any gas in the mix, which is absolutely the case because there are no grid connections for these things going on. So if there's using any gas in the mix whatsoever, emissions that go from 0.1 million tons of CO2 per year to 68 million tons of CO2 a year, that is 7 times the CO2 you would save from a 10% mode shift from road to rail. That is a doubling of rail capacity, and data centers could result in 7 times more emissions than that would save. So a reminder of the fact that data centers should form no part of our economic plan whatsoever. Just baffling, absolutely staggering. Now, we've not talked much about Paris, other than the odd news article here and there, and I absolutely want to do a retrospective on what has happened in Paris. I need to find the right person to talk to cover that story, but there's a reason we need to focus on this now. There's an interesting FT article done by Simon Cooper talking about how Paris beat the car. A few interesting tidbits in there. It's a lovely piece. But Leo Murray, friend of the show, picked up 68 suburban metro stations are opening from 2024 through 2031. 68. That's correct, which then resulted in this meme, which I like very much, from another chum, Celestial Weasel here, saying 68 metro stations is the Chad dog, and then the little soy dog saying Beckton, Riverside and Thamesmead DLR stations. So you've got Paris versus London here. When I talk about the lack of imagination, lack of scale in Britain, this is what I'm talking about. There's a nice little addendum here, is that there's these shots from the Born Identity 2002 and the Hidalgo Legacy 2026 of the road that the mini race is down being swapped by just a very nice riverside walking route. Good things are possible. And the key message here is that making mobility work wins you elections, it turns out, because has Hidalgo's programme for Paris been rejected at the ballot box? Has it held? The socialists, France, the socialists have absolutely held on to power in Paris, Marseille and other places, because this stuff is immensely popular. Turns out making mobility work is immensely electorally popular. Meanwhile, Sadiq Khan gets this a little bit, perhaps. There's some new charges being considered for SUVs in London, ignoring emissions, ignoring road deaths associated with these heavier vehicles and the incompetence of their drivers. The roads don't work with these wide vehicles, because where you could previously have vehicles parked along one side of the street and a fairly free flow of traffic on the other, the width of these vehicles has made that impossible. So there are lots of good reasons to just completely eject these vehicles from the urban core. They have no role to play in the urban core, and they should be completely ejected from it. Let's go to Bristol. Big news, yeah, another new station popping up. It doesn't feel hugely strategic when these are popping up left, right and centre, but at least there are stations opening, which is good news. Bristol Brabazon opening. Interesting choice of name, given it's referring to an aircraft that was designed by committee in the aftermath of the Second World War and can only be described as an enormous failure and kind of just a massive retrospective step in aircraft design. Yay, the Comet that was definitely superior to this, but this thing was an enormous, bizarre thing. Anyway, that's it, but I can understand why, actually, because that whole area is being called Brabazon. Again, an interesting choice, but Brabazon isn't the aircraft. The aircraft was named for the same thing the railway station is being named for. Let's go with that, shall we? Let's go with that. And where's this going to be opening? Well, it's going to be opening here next to the former Filton runway. It's kind of on the line that the kind of the loop that runs Avonmouth and round and Bristol has some railways. They don't really make any sense as a network. It's just some lines that have been left over that are being used a bit. But there are, it is there, and there are opportunities to improve. I remind people that there are opportunities for, maybe we could be doing more things with railways in other directions in Bristol that might make things better. And of course, Portishead connection is sort of progressing, ? So yeah, some progress, but it's good stuff. We're talking about mobility being a positive electoral force. Well, do more railways in cities, Britain. Oh, look, government has decided to put HS2 back in the news again. This time, bafflingly, I mean, this is not new, actually. This has been something that government's been kicking around. It's a Gilligan line. This whole story baffles me. I don't know what's going on, because this is just Gilligan stuff. Is Gilligan back in the fold with I can believe, Policy Exchange are pretty kind of reasonably thick as thieves with this version of Labour, so I can absolutely believe that once again they're being fed lines by Gilligan. What's bizarre in here is the, it's not on here, but the quote being given by, within this press release, saying that Mark Wilde has already done work. Well, I think I referred to the quote later. They're saying that Mark Wilde has already done work on this, and HS2 have already done work to look at these numbers, which I do not believe they have at all. Essentially, it's saying if you reduce the speed of what's left of HS2, drop it from 360 to 300 or 320 or whatever, there are some billions to be made. And something like every a billion per mile an hour, some gimmick number that's been made up. That's total hokum, utter fiction. There's just no basis in reality. The I paper picked this up. Steve Robertson at the I's picked this up. It's been reported by lots, but all the reporting so far, the Times and others, has been stenography, whereas Steve has actually dug in and challenged this. The headline is nice. New HS2 fastest trains to be made slower and even more expensive. That's the kind of headline we want to see when it comes to these sorts of HS2 stories. Some engineers quoted in it making the point that no savings would be made from reducing speed. You need more trains, which means you're having to buy and store more trains. It means you need a higher number of staff to operate the railway. It reduces the released capacity benefit, which means you have less benefits in the wider network. Any perceived savings to the track system would be lost in design costs of redesigning the route and adding additional maintenance facilities required for ballasted track, including extra sidings and junctions. All of HS2's current problems are because the government meddled with it. The idea that more government meddling is going to do anything other than increase costs should be considered laughable. The way you fix HS2 is by stepping away from it and allowing it to deliver it in scope as it was last set in stone. A design freeze is what's needed. Nothing is cheaper than freezing the design and building against a stable scope you've spent billions and 2 decades developing. A DfT spokesperson said that the Transport Secretary has made clear we will look at every opportunity to claw back costs and ensure HS2 delivers for the country. Whilst we wait for Mark Wilde to complete his review, his initial estimates, which initial estimates, this is the thing I think they've made up, show running HS2 trains at speeds in line with other high-speed railways could save billions of pounds. This is disingenuous because, of course, by the time HS2 opens, it will be, if they open it at lower speeds, it'll be slower than other high-speed rail lines that are contemporary to it. Quoting other high-speed rail lines that are open and operating now and have been in operation for decades and saying that's the state of the art is extremely disingenuous. HS2 is going to be opening at this rate in another flipping decade. So yeah, this is staggering, bizarre political move. I don't know why they've made this move. I don't know who's benefiting from it. Honestly, I'm completely puzzled. I just don't understand what they're doing here. Why have they just created another bad news story? They could have just not done this. They didn't need to publish this story at all. I'm just completely and utterly confused by this. It makes no sense. Meanwhile, planning consent has been revoked for the Stonehenge tunnel. It's finally dead. It's gone. The A303 upgrade is now gone. Now upgrade the railway. Put all that money into the railway. This was always a stupid project. I'm glad it's gone. As we have learned already, this is not the way. You do not solve these things by adding extra lanes. And it's as true going from single carriageway to dual carriageway as it is adding 20 lanes onto a already 8-lane motorway. This isn't the way to solve it. It just induces more cars onto the system. Upgrade the railway, provide better alternatives. Another story that's transport adjacent is the collapse of NCP, which is very interesting. This is not because somehow car parking is no longer profitable. Car parking is just a license to print free money. You have in most cases very old car parks that you just don't have to do anything with, and you just have people giving you money for them to be anywhere near them. There's no downside here. No, the reason it's collapsed is because this is another private equity asset stripping job. Private equity firm has gone in, done asset stripping, laden it with debt, and then it's now going to collapse it and make profit off the remains. Like, that's just how private equity works. Capitalism it just eats everything alive. It is not a system of operating an economy that has anyone's best interests at heart. Talking of which, BYD, the Chinese automaker, has managed to get EV chargers working almost as fast as kind of petrol pumps. 600 miles of range, full charge of a battery on their newest model of vehicle in 9 minutes. The Western car industry is done. It's a really interesting story. Wired picked this up, but like they're just a decade plus ahead of the US and Europe. Like, the automakers in the US and Europe are absolutely doomed. There is no response. There's no viable response to this, which is kind of fun. Anyway, a little bit of news. Back to me in the past in London for a little bit of a closeout. What an interesting conversation that was. I'm so pleased that Mariam very generously gave us quite a bit of her time. Look, I said at the start of this that I want to make that part of Rail Natter's mission, and part of my mission, is to make transport political again, is to really tie politicians' understanding of the relevance and the power of transport. A reminder, the UK's largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, and also, thanks to the current chaos in Iran, probably one of the key ways that the cost of living can be brought down. I wanted to remind politicians that is the case, and also provide
policy solutions, and that is something that the unions are doing through things like defending ticket offices, pointing out violence to workers, which in turn hits the number of people who actually use the railways. So just a really interesting, wide-ranging conversation. Who do you want me to speak to next, though? Who would you really like me to speak to? Yes, I know you want to say, I know you're all shouting Zach at me. Well, message Zach to make that happen, because I want to get Zach on as well, for sure. Wander around Zach's corner of London and see what Zach's commute looks like. So, another thing I want to say is thank you so much to, wait a minute, well, thank you so much to Michael C, who has been doing the filming today. Thank you, Michael. If you want to see what Michael has been up to, in particular in relation to Liverpool Street and what's been going on above Liverpool Street, watch Network News. Go watch Network News. There are videos on there. You're regularly uploading stuff on Network News. Lots of videos on there. Soon going to overtake Rail Natter in terms of YouTube popularity, so watch that space. Yeah, so Michael, thank you so much for filming today and being the tech. Look at this. We have a team. Look at this. We're a team. Yeah, no, Michael. Thank you so much for the work you've done. Everyone, this is what your Patreon money supports. It allows us to have additional production values and make better videos. Right, anyway, enough of me waffling. I will see you for the bonus momentarily. It only remains for me to say cheerio, cheerio.